And we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Space and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, September 4th, 8 EST, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Cinemasters Reviews. Happy Labor Day, everyone. I know some of you guys might have had the day off. Really hope you guys are taking that extra long weekend to recuperate and get ready to go back to work tomorrow. We here at Cinemasters Reviews actually took last week off, mainly because there just weren't too many big things. But I'm really excited to be back here to review some new movies. No guest this week, so my guess is this. My guess is this episode is probably going to be a little shorter than normal. Please ignore my dogs that are barking in the background. I do not know what they are barking about. But yeah, this episode is probably going to be a little shorter than normal, specifically because we do not have any guests. But we have two exciting reviews this week, one being the Equalizer 3, which is the third entry in the Equalizer franchise, as well as The Good Mother, the new film from Hilary Swank and Olivia Cooke. And I just say we jump right in to our first review, that being the biggest movie of the weekend, The Equalizer 3. This is the third entry in the Equalizer franchise, directed by Antoine Fuqua and starring Denzel Washington. This is based on the old TV show from the 80s. Denzel Washington still playing the character of Robert McCall. He's a former special ops agent. And in this one, we find him in Sicily, and he is trying to, when the movie opens, we discover that he is trying to recover stolen money. And during this mission, he accidentally gets shot. And after he gets shot, he kind of tries to decide, you know what, I might be getting a little too old for this. I might be getting a little too tired. Maybe I should try to settle down and maybe let just other people handle these tough jobs. And wouldn't you know it, he can't really stay down for too long. With this being the third entry in this franchise, you go in starting to expect certain things. Some people have kind of related this to Denzel Washington's John Wick. I don't really see it as that, mainly just because, while the John Wick films are very much concerned about the action, the choreography, and like setting up these huge stakes in the world, the Equalizer films are very much more about getting into the psyche of the character of Robert McCall, and Denzel usually is able to play that part with quite a bit of gravitas, as he does here. If you're a fan of Denzel Washington, which I don't see how you can, I think he's one of the best actors working today. I think he's really begun to realize what this character is. He's not someone that says like the most amount of lines. He's not the person that like sheds the most amount of emotions, but you can tell that he definitely has wants. He definitely has goals, and he wants to essentially just. He does not want to be doing what he's doing, but he kind of just does it because, well, he's good at it, and it's just kind of a means to an end. And man, Denzel, when Denzel wants to be a badass, Denzel can be a badass. I just think of this first scene where we find him in this like winery. We see these Italian gangsters come in, and they're going to try to shoot him, and he's just dusting off his gun and just says, "You have 9 seconds to either turn around and leave me or try to fight and die." And you can probably guess what these criminals end up doing. It does not end very well for them, and Robert McCall leaves them in a bloody mess. One of the major downsides of this movie, though, is after that happens, this movie takes around an hour to really get into the next action scene. This movie was definitely trying to be a little bit more of a slower Equalizer movie, and I think that is because they were trying to keep Robert McCall out of the action for as long as they could. And while I applaud the filmmakers for trying to do something new and trying to establish this new group of CIA agents led by Dakota Fanning, one of the new agents is played by David Denham from The Office. He played Roy in The Office. And while the movie's definitely trying to shed a little bit of focus on them. I think not having Robert McCall in the action and not just trying to sideline him a little, I think does not lead for the most interesting movie, because if I'm being honest, the only real character we really care about in these movies is Robert McCall, and it's because Denzel Washington is such a good actor, and I just think the pacing of this movie is just a little bit off. I can see what they were trying to do with not having this be an action scene a minute, and I don't really need an action scene a minute. I think back to the second Equalizer movie, and I think the ending of that movie just got so over the top with how it's just like Robert McCall is fighting enemies in like the eye of like a storm. And this one, I just think you kind of need a little bit more of a blend of both the drama and the action. I could probably applaud it a little bit more if, like I said, the characters were more interesting. And I just don't think, as opposed to the other two, Robert McCall doesn't really have like a super strong connection with any of these characters to really make you that invested. I think of the first one where he forms a connection with a Chloe Grace Moretz's character, who's like a young prostitute, and he's trying to like sort of save her from the streets. In the second one, he forms a connection with Ashton Sanders, who's someone who's trying to get into a life of crime, and Robert McCall's like, please don't do this. I've been down this road, and I don't want you to do that. This one doesn't really have that. It's much more of a stripped down, bare bones. We are really focusing on Robert McCall as the main character. And there are certain points in this movie towards the first half where I am kind of invested in it, where you're seeing him in Italy just go through the shores of Sicily, just kind of saying like, maybe this life just isn't for me. And I really applauded that. But when Robert McCall's the only character you're really interested in and you keep him out of the action for the first half of this movie, it's really hard to really get invested in what we're seeing. Dakota Fanning, I think, is kind of wasted as CIA agent Emma Collins. We learn that she's someone that's really trying to clean up the streets of Italy and clean up the Italian crime scene. We learn that there's a crime group called, I believe they're called the Camorra, that is the one that's sort of involved with the major crimes in this movie. And this movie's always kind of had an issue where you never really get that invested in any of the villains, in any of the main villains that we are introduced to. But at least with the first two, you at least get a really solid actor to play that major villain. I think in the first Equalizer movie, you get David Harbour, who you probably know from Stranger Things. The second Equalizer movie, you get Pedro Pascal, which you probably know from a ton of things, whether it's Game of Thrones, The Mandalorian, The Last of Us. This one, you don't really get like that strong of a main villain. You get one villain who's sort of like the smarmy asshole guy who's very much just trying to like poke the bear in every single circumstance he's in. And then you get the one like, oh, major crime boss, like this is the guy you should really be fearing. And I just don't think either of them were really that threatening. And I never felt like I never felt the motivation of Emma Collins to really stop these people, aside from the fact that she's obviously a CIA agent. This is not the first collaboration between Denzel Washington and Dakota Fanning. They were in Man on Fire about 19 years earlier, Man on Fire is an awesome movie, and I would recommend anyone watch that movie. I think it's a really great meditation on like how revenge does no one good, and I wish this movie was as good as that, even though I don't think this movie is really that bad. It's just sort of, it's definitely just kind of bare bones, if you will. Plot gets a little convoluted towards the end. Once again, like I said, they try to bring in more like crime families and how they're behind these drugs that are coming into Italy. And Robert McCall finally gets into the action to say like, "Yo, these people can't protect themselves. I need to be the one to protect them." And I just think it gets a little convoluted where it's a little tough to follow along, but it's not impossible. I will give this movie credit towards the second act. Is when the action scenes start picking up. And when this movie wants to get violent, it gets violent. This movie has no issue showing how just real the violence in this movie feels. Robert McCall at points honestly kind of feels like a serial killer with how just like weirdly surgical he is and how he takes out foes and takes out bad guys. If violence isn't your thing in movies, you're not going to enjoy this. It doesn't bother me. And when it comes to an action movie, I'm perfectly fine with it. And I think it does a really great job at directing it. Antoine Fuqua is always really good at bringing that like a gritty street feel to his movies. I think all the way back to Training Day, back in the early 2000s, and this one he still brings that. And the ending of the movie is actually pretty satisfying. If this does end up being the final Equalizer movie, which, considering that Denzel Washington is now, believe it or not, almost 70 years old. He looks phenomenal, but the man is almost 70 years old. If this does end up being the final Equalizer movie, I think it ends on a pretty nice note, and we kind of see that Robert McCall sort of gets his nice, peaceful ending towards the end. So yeah, while this movie doesn't really have like a ton of major things to really hang your head on, it doesn't really have too many like bad elements or things that really annoyed me, which we'll get to the movie later. That one definitely does, which I have a lot to say about that. This is one that definitely it gets the job done. I think you kind of want a little bit more out of movies, especially if you're going to be going to see them in theaters. But this one is a nice finale to this franchise that was never like they've never been like the greatest movies in the world, but they've always been entertaining to a point. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, in case anyone doesn't know, 0 is awful, just absolutely atrocious film. One that you're going to be remembering for a long time, but not for the reasons that you would hope. Just one that really just makes you hate just movies just for that little bit while you're watching. And 10 is an incredible film, one that you'll be remembering for years upon years, and one that reminds you why you love movies in the first place. If I were to rate this on a scale of 0 to 10, I think it does just the minimum amount for me to call this a fairly passable movie, and I would give it 6 out of 10 videotapes. I think this is a decent movie, decent action film. Denzel Washington, he's always on point. I don't think he's ever phoned in a performance, ever. Even if he does, I think he's just so good at just being Denzel that it doesn't come off. The world that this movie builds is not the most interesting. Kind of your run-of-the-mill crime film when you really get down to it, but I think because Denzel is at the forefront of it, you are left entertained. This is not a movie I think you have to go see in the theaters unless you're just a die-hard fan of this franchise. Then you might get something out of it. But yeah, I think when this movie does come on streaming, or whether it comes on HBO and Showtime, I think you would have a pretty fun time watching this at home. So yeah, that is the first review of the night of Equalizer 3, 13 minutes in. And it's got to be setting a record. That's what happens when we don't have a guest, but hopefully you're not, none of you guys are getting too annoyed at my voice. But we're going to be going on to our second review of the evening, and that is The Good Mother, directed by Miles Joris Pay-Rafit. I hope I said that name correctly. You don't know what this movie is? I would not blame you. After I saw this movie, I went on Letterboxd to see how many people had seen it. And Letterboxd is an awesome app. It's where movie fans kind of keep track of all the movies they're watching. This is not like dependent on how many people in the world have seen it, but I checked the app, and 279 people have logged this movie, which is very, very small. So if you have not heard of this movie, hopefully I can bring your attention to it, or not. We will get to this. The Good Mother stars Hilary Swank. She is a criminal investigator whose son has just recently died, and she is currently still in the grieving stages. She kind of blames her son's girlfriend, played by Olivia Cooke, who she believes got him into drugs. We learned that Olivia Cooke's character is pregnant with her son's child. And we also kind of learn that there may have been some nefarious dealings going down with her son's death. We also get some help from Hilary Swank's other son, who is played by Jack Rayner, who is one of the cops who is investigating this case. As this movie goes on, we start to learn that her son may have been involved in certain things that he shouldn't have been involved with, certain criminal activities. And if this movie sounds interesting, I hate to break it to you, it's not. This movie's actually pretty bad. If I can talk about the positives, I think the performances are pretty good. Hilary Swank is getting the job done. I don't think there's anything really she does that's amazing, but there's never really a moment where I think she's bad in the movie. I think Olivia Cooke is probably giving the best performance as this grieving girlfriend. She's the one that I think has the most pressure on her as the character, because no one really likes her because they view her as this screw-up who sort of led her boyfriend down this road of just like self-destruction in the way. As we learn, Jack Rayner is also good. That is kind of where the positives end, because aside from the performances, I think this is, and I hate to use this term, a fairly incompetent movie with how it portrays everything. The number one complaint I have with this movie, whoever edited this film, I did not look it up. I don't mean to spotlight it because I'm going to be trashing on this person. Whoever edited this film does not know how to edit a movie, because it is one of the most shoddy and sporadically edited thrillers I think I've seen in a long, long time. I just think of when you have the funeral scene of Hilary Swank is at the funeral and she sees Olivia Cook's character grieving, and she's just like, she's mad that she's there because she still blames her, and she just goes over and she's about to punch her, and then you just hear Olivia Cook say, "I'm pregnant." Punch happens, she falls. We get a reaction shot of Hilary Swank's character just being like, "Oh," and then 3 seconds later we cut to a restaurant scene of them two talking. We have no room to breathe in what should be this dramatic moment. And we also took too much time, if this was supposed to be a comedic moment, to really understand what we're supposed to be feeling. This movie has so many moments like that where it's just edited so clunkily. Like, you'll have a character call someone and say, "I need you to come check this out." And then within the next cut, they're literally just standing in that room. And this obviously wasn't a stylistic choice. This was a choice to I guess just keep the runtime short. This movie has a runtime of less than 90 minutes, which would usually be a plus. But when a movie is this choppy and this sporadic, it just leaves you with a headache, because you're just like, I can't keep track of anything that's really going on. There's an extremely dramatic moment that happens towards the end of this movie that you don't feel anything towards, because you cannot tell what's happening, because it's shot from such a close angle and the shots are coming in at such quick succession that you don't feel anything. It also doesn't help that the lighting on this movie is actually really poor. There are quite a few shots in this movie where you're in a really seedy location, whether it's places that Swank's son went to because he was involved with drugs, and it's very low lit. And these types of moments can often be there to establish atmosphere and establish mood. But when you're at the point where you can't see really anything that's going on, you end up just being bothered by saying, "What is happening? What am I supposed to be paying attention to?" And you can't end up getting that invested. Another major issue with this movie, this is a mystery film. I like mystery films mainly because while you're watching the movie, I don't know if you do this. When I'm watching a mystery, I try to solve what's going on, and I try to keep track of what's going on with the characters. And the number one thing a bad mystery film can do is if you are smarter than the characters you are watching. And man, the second this movie starts, you know exactly who was the one responsible for Hilary Swank's son's death. I don't want to say what it is because this is a non-spoiler review. All my reviews are non-spoiler. But the second this movie starts, you know immediately who it is. And the characters should be able to have some idea of who it is, but they don't, because all the characters are so stupid. You are 10 steps above every single character, and you're waiting for them to catch up, but they can't, because this movie is so light on plot and so light on runtime that they keep on going over the exact same points. There is one character that is introduced towards the middle of towards the beginning of the movie, and towards the beginning of the movie, and it's and all the characters are like, this is the guy who's obviously there to who was obviously there to be the red herring, and this is the guy who committed this crime. And you as an audience is like, it's not that guy, it's not that guy, it's that person right there. Just get to the point where you can realize it. And what sucks is the characters realize it around an hour into this movie, and then the movie goes on for another 30 minutes, and the mystery isn't even resolved by the end. I think there's some hints given that the characters might know who did it, but they're just kind of gonna let them go because it's not worth going after it. This movie, I hate to be this negative. This movie sucks, and I just gotta say, this movie is awful. This movie is incompetent. Like I said, the filmmaking is bad. The storytelling is bad. It's short. Some of the performances are good, but that's about it. I could keep on going and going and tell you scene by scene why these are bad, but I think I'd just be running in circles, and I just think I should probably just head into final ratings. If I were to review this movie on a scale of 0 to 10, I think I'm going to give it a 2.5. I think those 2.5 points are for the performances and for the fact that you aren't there for that long, even though it feels like you are there for a long time because of how just boring and how formulaic this movie gets. The term procedural is often used to describe these types of thrillers, and there are good procedurals out there. Zodiac is a phenomenal movie. Spotlight is a phenomenal movie. This is the bad type of procedural where you don't care about a single character. You don't care about the mystery because you know what's going on, and it's filmed so poorly that you just can't get invested. Yeah, I would just say just stay away from this movie. I can't even recommend seeing this in theaters or waiting to go see this in streaming. It's one of the few movies where I would say, yeah, you should probably just kind of stay away unless you do want to make an opinion for yourself, which I will always encourage all my viewers to do. But yeah, this The Good Mother, not a good movie, and honestly one of the weakest movies I think I've seen this year. Well, yeah, we are 21 minutes in, but we are just about done. Thank you all for watching Cinemasters Reviews. This has been an awesome episode. Was a little nervous coming in because I didn't have a guest, but I'm happy I'm proving to myself that I can still go at it with just solo, and this was a lot of fun. Yeah, Nick and Bo, okay, we'll avoid The Good Mother. Yes, I would recommend you do avoid this. Thank you all for watching. Just remember to subscribe to the video store. We have new videos coming out every single day. All movie-related shows, except for the Set List, which is a music-related show. Brooklyn and Bar do amazing stuff there. Remember to like this video. It helps out a lot. And yeah, next week, we're actually going to be having 3 reviews. We are going to be reviewing Bottoms, which actually opened up this week. But I didn't have a chance to go see it, but I do want to talk about it because I have seen a lot of people talk about it, so I want to give my opinion on it. We're also going to be reviewing The Nun 2 and My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, which both open next week. Thank you all for watching Cinemasters Reviews. Thank you for coming back, even though I did take a day off. Even though I did take a week off. I hope you are all enjoying your Labor Day. And until next time, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.